If I were to go into Climax Master difficulty, this is definitely one of the DPS builds I'd use. A rifle that outshines every other in the damage department, but is not really that pleasant to use, especially on console. But with how much you're able to simply dispatch enemies at ease, it's almost impossible to pass this weapon up. One of the best aspects of this build is its ability to utilize any weapon and be able to shred. So if you're not completely comfortable using the Ravenous, or you just don't have it, no worries. This build template is designed to adapt to anything with high damage capability. Obliterating aim is what I call this. With the explosion you get from the shoulder switch, I can't use any other words to describe the outcome. Usually nothing remains and you can just go on to the next victim, but I think it's time to stop talking about it and show you what I have going on here. Okay, we are finally here and I have the build that you've been all waiting for, Obliterating Aim, and I made a few changes to this. I did say that I was going to do a PvP version and do a lot of armor because I wanted to be able to compete with other players while swapping shoulders. It's really difficult right now. We're kind of in a meta of rate of fire, so it's really difficult to use this in PvP, but I just decided to forget about that. You know, I don't really care about that anymore. So this is pretty much a PvE build and I'm okay with that. I've done my fair share of damage with the Ravenous back in the day in PvP in the Dark Zone. Some pretty crazy encounters.
No way out over here. I see him.
Detecting additional hostile contacts.
Down.
Rogue agent eliminated.
Ripper, you good? They're near me.
Rogue hive detected.
Got him. He ran. Yep.
Bite me.
Oh my god, bro. I hit him with the Ricky, bro. Where you going, dog? three stacks. Bro, I just wiped all three of them with the Ravi. If this ain't the best exotic in the game, I don't know what is.
Oh man, those days were amazing. Anyways, this build is extremely powerful. I actually expected it to hit as hard as it does, destroying everything in its path. It's just that you have to be careful a little bit with this when swapping shoulders, and you can't really get into certain covers when using this because of the shoulder swap, so you have to play this strategically in a way that benefits you the most. First of all, I'm using a specialization, and this is great because it has a lot of attributes that add stability and other attributes that help you aim with the Ravenous that jumps up and down. Specifically with Breathe Free, 15% weapon stability, reduces recoil, and faster acquisition of targets. It's perfect for this build. And then you got extra headshot damage with rifles and marksman rifle damage. So this is really good to have just in general. And one thing about the sharpshooter specialization is that when you use an armor kit after being on fire, it automatically just dissipates whatever status effect that you have, so it doesn't linger on after you use your armor kit. I think that's one of the best armor kits aside from the firewall and a few others. Anyways, my primary weapon is none other than the Ravenous. Look at that, 300k damage. And I have it 14% expertise, so I'm getting 14% more weapon damage. And somebody told me in the comments when I made my other video about the skill build that can't be disrupted, they said that now you're able to reroll all of your exotic weapons and redeem the attributes damage to armor and damage to targets out of cover simultaneously, just like you can with the capacitor right here. So I tried it and I rerolled this weapon many times. It didn't work. It just kept giving me critical hit damage and a random talent or random attribute here. So it's not the same as the capacitor, and you can't do it with any other weapon either. I tried it with the eagle bearer, kept giving me health, so that doesn't work. So if anybody heard that, don't try it. I tried it and that would have been crazy if I can get targets out of cover damage and damage to armor on this build. But anyways, this is what the Ravenous does. It has a talent called 𝐒𝐴𝐴𝐴, I don't know, is that how you pronounce it? But on trigger pull, it fires both barrels at once. That's one of the reasons why this hits so hard. So 2 bullets come out at the same time, and it doesn't have 60 rounds in a mag. I mean, it does, but it's kind of deceitful because you can only fire 30 times because it shoots out 2 bullets at the same time, which means you'll want to see that armor get chunked so fast. This is crazy, right? So what it does is that when fired from the right shoulder, it hits at offensive primers and defensive primers. When fired from the left shoulder, hits from one shoulder will detonate all the opposite shoulder's primers when present. So when detonated, each offensive primer deals 100% weapon damage, while each defensive primer grants 4% bonus armor and 10% amplified damage against armor plates for 5 seconds. So the primer effectiveness is doubled at 10 stacks, which means you're gonna get a lot more than what you see right here. One quick tip about when you're on the left shoulder and you're getting those defensive primers, if you kill the enemy while you're on the left shoulder without swapping to the right, then you're going to retain that bonus armor regardless. You don't have to swap shoulders. So in reference to being on cover, it's a really good strategy or technique to implement, since you can't really swap shoulders that much while you're in cover. But yeah, man, once you swap shoulders to the right and get those offensive primers and then swap back to the left, the explosions are just going to literally delete them. And so when we're talking about the defensive primers that grant 4% bonus armor and amplified damage, that 10% amplified damage is 50% since once you stack it up, and you're just going to destroy chungas, robotic dogs, anything that has those armor plates and just has health is going to literally destroy all of that. Now, this is great, like I said, because you can use any other weapon that you want with this. You can use the Lexington, you can use the Eagle Bearer, because it's a crit based build. I'm going to show you how much crit I have at the end of this, but it's pretty insane. And the secondary I'm using is like glue. This was the shotgun talent that was revealed with the latest update in the game. This is one of the best shotgun talents ever. It kind of outshines almost every other one, right? So the great thing about shotguns and LMGs is that they roll with targets out of cover damage and damage to armor. So this is almost god rolled. And here's the talent. It's called Perfect Brazen. Receive 3.5% amplified damage on the next shot with a weapon for each pellet that hits the target. And if it's at least 4 pellets hit, killing an enemy will provide plus 8% amplified damage on the next shot. You're really going to be deleting players and enemies with this as well. It's just a great secondary to have along with a rifle or any assault rifle. You can actually use another assault rifle if you want to. Anything is going to be strong with this, right? And I'm just using for the pistol the Orbit, where you can get some more critical hit chance and damage for killing an enemy after you swap to it within 10 seconds. But here is the build, okay? And off rip, the attribute composition you want is crit chance, crit damage, full stop, with critical hit damage mods. Initially, I had the Coyote's mask because I said to myself, I want more crit, and I'm definitely going to be able to get it with pack instincts. But I decided to change it to the Providence because it's just going to give me these flat stats. It's not going to fluctuate, it's not going to change. And players on your team, when you're in a group, are going to be most likely having the Coyote's mask. So you don't have to worry about getting that extra crit. Teammates is going to give it to you. Okay. Now, the chest piece I'm using is Unbreakable. 𝐒𝐿𝐴 gives you 8% critical hit chance off rip. This is awesome. I think it used to be 10%, so they nerfed this a little bit. But this, I've had this chest piece for so long. You could change the talent to whatever you like, but I prefer Unbreakable, especially with a build like this when you're swapping shoulders. One thing that gives me an indication to swap shoulders is when my armor is broken and I get my 95% armor back. So it's like I get a second life while killing enemies. This is great for survivability and legendary content and beyond. And so I have 3 Providence pieces. the mask, the holster, and the backpack. And for the talent I have on the backpack, it's vigilance, perfect vigilance. This is called the gift. The only difference with this and the regular vigilance is that it's 4 seconds before disabling the buff instead of 3. Okay, so it's not really a big difference. I just like the fact that it's perfect. And 1 second I think helps a little bit. It increases your total weapon damage by 25%, and taking damage disables the buff. But you know what the great thing about the Ravenous is? Or whenever you get bonus armor, that bonus armor stops you from taking damage from losing your vigilance buff because they're hitting bonus armor. I've done this with other builds that had a little bit more tank, but you can implement this strategy with a lot of things. Shield, the Scorpio, when using those builds that grant a lot of bonus armor with status effects. So you can utilize this strategy with a lot of weapons and builds. And of course, I got the Fox's Prayer knee pads for the 10% rifle damage and the multiplicative targets out of cover damage with critical hit damage rolled. And you always want with crit builds to have this duo, the 𝐒𝐻𝐿 and the Gruppo, especially since for the first piece, it gives you 13% crit damage. For the first piece of 𝐒𝐻𝐿, it gives you 8% crit chance. And this is pretty much God rolled. I can roll this to whatever core attribute I like, and I've had this for a long time as well. Anyways, the skills I'm using are the EMP sticky bomb and the decoy. I always say this, perfect for DPS builds. They have low cooldowns, and you're able to, slip in and out of enemy encounters with this setup. But here are the stats: 60% crit chance, 194.8% crit damage. This is pretty much the max. And like I said, when you have players that are using the Coyote mask, this is going to be increased even more. So it's going to give you more crit damage. The Ravenous is heavily affected by crit. It's really going to lean into that damage, and you're going to see it and feel it. You feel almost unstoppable when using this build. It has a really good conversion. Like I said, I'm going to use this in the Climax Master difficulty. This is one of the builds I'm saving. I got some builds that I'm saving right now for that Climax difficulty, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. You know what I mean? So let me know what you think about this build down below in the comment section. I don't know why it took me so long to release it, but here it is. I appreciate you stopping by to the end. And if you liked the video, like it. Don't hesitate to subscribe to my channel if you're new here. I'll see you in the next one. Be right out.